Welcome students. Today we are going to study chapter 15 of science, that is our environment. In this chapter we are going to study about different types of organisms, mainly their interconnection with each other, the flow of energy from one organism to another organism, and along with this we'll also study about ozone layer in the environment in detail. We know that due to human activity, large amount of waste is produced every day and it is thrown into the environment, which causes different types of pollutions. So the first topic which we are going to study is effect of adding waste to the environment. Human activities produce a lot of waste materials which are thrown away into the environment. This waste causes pollution of air, water and soil. The waste materials produced are of two types. They are biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste. So first of all we are going to study what are biodegradable waste. They are the waste which are decomposed into harmless substances by microorganisms. There are the organisms called decomposers which decompose complex substances into simple substances. So this type of waste can be decomposed by decomposers. The example of biodegradable waste are vegetables, fruits, pulses, cereals, cotton, jute, wool, wood, leather, paper, animal dung, animal bones, etc. Now let us see how this biodegradable waste would affect the environment. During decomposition of substances, a lot of foul smell spreads in the surrounding area. This is the first effect. And second effect is the place where these biodegradable substances are present along with the moisture. The insects like mosquitoes, houseflies will be developed and they will cause diseases. Now the next type of waste are non-biodegradable wastes. These are the wastes which are not decomposed by microorganisms. Example, polythene bags, plastic, synthetic fiber, glass, metal, synthetic rubber, insecticides, pesticides, etc. Now let us see how they would affect the environment. The non-biodegradable substances get accumulated, they doesn't get decomposed and they remain in the ecosystem, due to which they causes pollution. They may choke the system of many animals and kill them. Another effect is these substances due to accumulation cause water and soil pollution. For example, pesticides, detergents, polythene, etc. Now next is ecosystem and its components. So first of all, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem consists of all living organisms in an area along with non-living components and their interaction. We know that all living organisms such as plants, animals, microorganisms and human beings as well as the physical surroundings interact with each other and maintain a balance in nature. All the interacting organisms in an area together along with non-living constituents of the environment form an ecosystem. Now the types of ecosystems are: first one is natural ecosystems, example forest, deserts, grasslands, mountains, ponds, lakes, rivers, ocean, etc. And artificial ecosystems like garden, parks, crop fields, aquarium, zoo, etc. Now let us consider the example of a garden. If you visit the garden, you will find different plants such as grasses, trees, flower-bearing plants like rose, animals like frogs, insects and birds. All these living organisms interact with each other and their growth, reproduction and other activities are affected by abiotic components of the ecosystem. So we can say that garden is an ecosystem. Next is components of an ecosystem. An ecosystem consists of two main components. They are biotic components and abiotic components. First, biotic components. They are the living components like plants, animals, microorganisms, etc. And these living components are again categorized into producers, consumers and decomposers. So producers, what are producers? They are the green plants which produce food by themselves by the process of photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. Next is consumers. Consumers are herbivores, which get their food directly from the plants, carnivores, which get their food indirectly from the plants, and omnivores, which get their food directly or indirectly from the plants. Next is decomposers. They are the organisms which decompose dead plants and animals. They decompose complex organic substances into simple inorganic substances in the soil, which are again used by the plants. Now the next type of components are abiotic components. They are non-living components like air, water, soil, minerals, sunlight, temperature, wind, etc. So it may be asked, what are biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem in 2 to 3 mark question. Now let us see the various categories of consumers with examples. First one is herbivores. They are grass eating animals, means the animals which feed on plants, example deer, rabbit, etc. Next is carnivores. They are flesh eating animals, example tiger, lion, etc. Omnivores. They are the animals that eat both plants and other small animals, example crow, human beings, etc. Next is parasites. They are the organisms which depend on other living organisms and harm them for their food. For example, lice, tapeworm, etc. Saprophytes. They are the organisms that depend on dead and decaying matter for their food. For example, fungi, bacteria, etc. Now let us see what is the role of decomposers in ecosystem. We are knowing that decomposers break down complex organic substances and convert them into simple or inorganic substances. All these elements that are present in the body on which decomposers act is released back to the nature. Thus, decomposers maintain the balance in the nature and plays an important role in the environment. Now the next topic is food chain. A food chain is the flow of food energy from one organism to the next and so on. They usually start with a producer and end with a carnivore. In a food chain, an organism gets food from one group of organisms. We know that plants are the producers, they produce their food by themselves. And other organisms called consumers, they either feed on plant or on other organisms or both. So this way, a series of organisms that take part in transferring food energy from producers to consumers and from consumers to decomposers is called a food chain. Examples of some of the food chains are given over here. Let us consider the first example, grass. Grass is a plant, means it is a producer. It is eaten up by deer, which is a consumer. And this deer is again eaten up by the lion, which is again a consumer. So this is example of one food chain. Similarly, so many different food chains are there in the nature. Here you can see the example of one food chain of grassland, pond and ocean biome are given. If we consider the grassland food chain, you can see that the grass, which is a producer, is eaten up by grasshopper, which is called a primary consumer. This grasshopper is eaten up by rat, which is called a secondary consumer. Rat is eaten up by snake, which is a tertiary consumer, and the snake is eaten up by hawk, which is a quaternary consumer. So we can say that in a food chain, producers are consumed by primary consumers are consumed by secondary consumers consumers are consumed by tertiary consumers, and all of them are decomposed by the decomposers. Next is food web. Food web is a group of several interconnected food chains, which means that in a food web, different kinds of food chains are connected with each other. In a food web, an organism gets food from more than one group of organisms. Why? Because we know that each organism is generally eaten up by two or more than other kind of organisms. and these organisms are again eaten up by several other kinds of organisms. So instead of a straight line food chain, the relationship can be shown as a series of branching lines, which is known as a food web. Thus, the food web is a group of interconnected food chains. Now let us consider this food web. It is an interconnection of 4 food chains. We consider first food chain. Grass is eaten up by insects. Insects are eaten up by birds, and birds are eaten up by hawk. Now the same grass can also be eaten up by grasshopper, and this grasshopper is eaten up by frog, and frog is again eaten up by hawk. So you can see that these two are interconnected with each other. Now same grass can again be eaten up by moth. Moth can be eaten up by frog, and frog is eaten up by snake, and this snake is eaten up by hawk. If we consider the fourth food chain, we can see that plants, they are eaten up by rabbits, and rabbits are eaten up by snake. So here you can see that all these food chains are connected with each other, because plants are not only eaten up by insects or grasshoppers, they are eaten up by many organisms like rabbit, moth, etc. Same way, if we consider frog, frog can be eaten up by hawk also, frog can be eaten up by snake also. So this food web is a interconnection of food chains.